Welcome to another scuffed episode of Tactical Crouch 159. We're once again left alone to fend for ourselves on this lonely island.
Okay.
And I gotta say, Joe, it's not the same when we can't hear the doo-doo.
Yeah, I was concerned because I really don't like hearing myself. So, I got to hit the slider down, creep it back up, make sure I'm not missing, the intro. And there was no doo-doo. Left me a little, threw me off balance a little bit.
Yeah, it was the last time I was here, we got to hear it. And then now I was just waiting.
Kenobi's just sad.
Yeah,
his heart breaks.
Go back in.
That's the difference when you get this watered down, just broken German man instead of the audiophile, audio tech engineer.
God.
That's kind of what you get yourself in for. Of course, something happened in China. That means we got to bring the Chinese experts on the show. And it's not even...
Hey, that's expert. I left that. I walked away from that life.
No.
Joe has given me the tour. He's like,
I'm here. You go. This is all you know.
Joe gave me the fucking crown from WoW.
Don't want it.
There must always be a Chinese expert.
That's right.
There you go.
I'm just Bovar, just
you are
Chung Do Bob. Scars.
Yeah.
I mean, scars you definitely have. There is definitely a lot
covered in
breaking.
burns.
When you watch an extensive amount of Chinese
burn
Overwatch.
was from LGE, who is Gauntlet performance. This was, when China hasn't won a World Cup ever. It's everywhere. But we have the ice crown, so
I still have the bullet wounds from saying in the early seasons when Chengdu upset Shanghai that Shanghai was possibly the best team in the world, and Chengdu upsetting them was really bad, and people in the community just kept drive by shooting me, just no way, these are the best. Well, how did that turn out? Maybe not the best, certainly very close.
Fourth best.
I mean,
I love to always bring up that
we're not doing that. Wait, stop. We're not doing that American stuff where it's we're determining world rankings based on one weekend's performance in the playoffs. Just because they made fourth in the season playoffs doesn't mean they were the fourth best team in the world during 2020. Also, you're the Shanghai stand. You gotta actually defend this more. What are you doing? Right. Anyway, of course, Joe, a lot happened this week. Finally,
they did.
Finally, we had some juice,
some good games. Overwatch. Yeah, we got some Gordon Ramsay in here. Finally, some good Overwatch. And I couldn't be happier. It's been a nice get back in the swing of things. Gotta
really quick,
brush up.
Can you do that again? Can you beep again?
Yeah, I'm gonna beep again.
Why are you leaning towards your right as if you have it in your arm lean? It's you're part of your you're on the Enterprise and you're just the in the captain's chair, just hitting things on the. Is it not in front of you on the table?
He's using Mario Kart.
No, it's not in front of me. Why would it be in front of me?
In front of your keyboard.
No, are you crazy?
Where is it then?
It's on the right.
Why is it on the right?
Because I'm right-handed.
Right, but right side is the mouse, right?
Are you still talking about Overwatch on this show?
No, we're talking about the Go XLR. Where is it, Joe? Where is it?
It's on the right. I rarely do I ever need to stop using my mouse and then do something.
Okay.
It's either one or the other.
I feel like John would rip you apart for this opinion, but...
Maybe. That, there's plenty of opinions that he could probably
it feels
rip me
really
apart.
natural for me to look at the sound interface constantly and then having to press the buttons with whatever hand I would prefer in that moment of using. Because if I need to sneeze and I hold a cup in my hand, I might like to hit the with the left. And then if I am otherwise not occupied, I might want to hit it with the right.
Maybe I'm just backward, maybe, I was, Chinese Overwatch fan, participated in, that mythos, that lore. I'm just a weird guy, kooky, crazy, not like the other analysts. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't understand this at all anymore. Right. So, Nexus Cup, please.
Well, first we have to, patron producers, Refined Bean, Fraudinho Pin, Battle Crab Lulshin, Rexane, Audio Compass, Kasha67, Char, Picasso, Nathan, Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Fabled Stephen, Roger Beak, Owen, Chris R34444, Horbjorn, and listen to the podcast whilst on the toilet and in the shower. Thank you, Yiska, Peace Camper, Anxiety Pokemon, Sir Girthlaw, Bronze Bot, Boohow, Evan, and Alex S. Nexus Cup, talk to me.
That wasn't bad. Good job.
Sweet.
We got to make sure that they're there. Sometimes that falls through the cracks when dad's not home, but today, hall monitors on point. We got this.
You made up for your egregious go X.
I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't know if I think that might just be a Cardinals, and I might just be, put on display here in a bit.
All right, so let me ask you this. So I assume we watched a healthy amount of the Nexus Cup, maybe not everything. But
I watched everything.
You watched everything, okay. But you got a good idea where, like, how in shape teams felt. So overall, how would you say, like, would you say you could feel that teams like only started scrimming like a week ago or a month ago?
Did Dallas scrim at all?
Maybe not. Who knows?
It didn't look like it.
Sure, it didn't look like it.
They got gapped in like every game, and pretty bad too. Especially on like the DPS side, where it's like this meta sucks for Dallas, like really hard. Just in general, they don't have a dedicated tracer player besides like Sparkle, but then they kind of have this weird rotation with Sparkle and Erkey. It's just like they don't really have an idea of how to play this meta, and it felt like the best times where they were like competitive was when they played like their comfort picks, like Fearless was on Winston, like McCree, because Erkey seems to just love McCree more than any other character. Dallas had a lot of issues, and I think a lot of it comes down to this meta just not being favorable. Volamel wrote a whole article about Fearless on Ball because it was.
It wasn't the whole thing. It was just the big one for Dallas.
But it was a pretty big glaring issue for Dallas was that this meta just doesn't seem to fit them like at all. Just this team, does not.
Which was surprising because it seemed like there was like mixed opinions on like how good Fearless was. Not only coming into this season, but like in these matches in particular, where it felt like people were maybe not praising his Wrecking Ball play, but like it was kind of night and day. That big of a difference for me when you look at somebody like Jihoon, somebody obviously looking at Gaga from Contenders, obviously didn't play, but these are some like known Wrecking Ball players, and comparing that to Fearless's play, it wasn't there. Maybe it's just the overall team dynamic where they're again not scrimming, so he has like a weird engagement timing, doesn't know when to, or waiting for this tracer to show up and it never does. Hard to say, but that was a big glaring hole for me, that especially if this is the meta that we're going to come into April, and this is what we're playing, which caveat's probably not, let's face it, there's probably going to be a patch, there's probably going to be meta changes. If this were to be it, I'm very hesitant to put Dallas high in any regards, let alone if you were to. I made the mistake of trying to put them in Asia. Obviously, they're not playing in Asia, but I was like, man, Dallas might just be last. And I'm like, wait, no, they're playing in NA. They can't be last. Vancouver Titans exist. So, at least they won't be last. At least they'll at least beat up on somebody. That's good. What do you think? Any saving graces for them so far, or is this
it's so early, dude. I feel like
it is.
It is
true.
But like it looked pretty bad. Like all things, like it really did not look. And obviously it's early. It's like it's Nexus. It's not like a totally like all or nothing tournament. But there are some, at least in this meta specifically, it's like this just doesn't. And I think like. It is early in terms of just like we don't know what meta is going to be played in April, but this is not a good sign.
Nor is it a good sign, especially when people are running around saying that this is a top 3 team.
The expectations on Dallas are
way too high,
humongous. Like
stupidly
EM was like a great team, like won Gauntlet 2019, Rush, and what Sparkle and Erkey did with Paris, Hanbin as well, Fielder, like what everything that they did is like great. But this team needs to be handled better with their expectations because they are egregiously high right.
And it's not to say that they're a bad team by any
they're
means.
good teams.
It's just, there are ways that this team can falter. This is obviously being one of them. Not going to use this as some sort of, smoking gun evidence that, oh my God, Dallas is going to be, bad, or oh my God, they can't make playoffs. Not at all. But this is a gigantic eye opener. At least it should be for these Dallas fans or these people running around saying that, Dallas, rebuilding effectively EM is going to, win the Overwatch League this season. It's just, it feels unreasonable when you put them in the league in this point in time after it's gotten so difficult and it's gotten so much better. The injection of talent this year, again, it feels like we repeat ourselves year after year, but the league only has leveled up. And that's not to say, again, that this is a bad team, but it's real hard to be, top world class right now.
Yeah, and if anything, it just proves that just stacking people, like really good players, I think you could easily argue that at least 4 of their starters at any given point probably have claim towards like a top 3 position, at least last season in their position. But that's not everything that Overwatch is, right? So
100%.
Then again, this is also not the premise that the team was built on. It's not just that they're stacking super highly qualified talent. They also have some pre-existing synergy, or if they don't, they at least have practice in the same dojo, so to speak. So that there should be some similarities in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is that the aspect that makes you skeptical? Because honestly, like when I look at Nexus Cup so far out with probably as little practice as has happened, I'm not sure how much of it is actually signal for being an underwhelming team and how much noise there is still in there.
I feel like there's one other team that came into this event like relatively underprepared, but if we're going to give that caveat for this team, why can't we give that to most teams? If we're going to say like, oh, it's too far out, like who's to say that anybody's practicing? I'm sure some teams have already begun practicing. It seems like Seoul from, Arnold tweeting on Twitter, maybe they've been, scrimming. Is it that much more than Dallas? Is that, how much more or less is that? That's tough to say. And that's where I really have or draw problems with that argument, where it's like, okay, if we're going to make that distinction for this team, how can we not make that for other teams that are underperforming? And, by all metrics, the one team that I feel like should have underperformed, overperformed. That's the Guangzhou Charge. So where is this disconnect where it's like, okay, Dallas didn't practice, but everybody else did, or nobody's been practicing, and this is just how Dallas looks right now. Not to say that they can't improve, but if we're all kind of keeping it all even, that's where I struggle with that. It's, I think Shanghai probably came in a little underprepared, but still you get Shanghai. You get that prestigious, you get that dominance, you get to see the team that you saw last season, not necessarily the most clean. Let's not mince words. Their match for Seoul was not what I think most people were expecting. And what probably will end up being the final, if I'm going to be completely honest, is going to be another, dogfight of a battle, because Shanghai looks to be a little not underwhelming, but if you were to measure that performance versus last season, I think you could argue as such. But did it kind of surprise either you that like Fielder just wasn't in?
Yeah, I don't
at all.
I mean, Rappel like got bullied half the time that I was watching those games. It's like Rappel's dying first, or Rappel's getting.
And I don't blame him.
Yeah,
though.
I mean, it's not like his fault, but like.
I think there were certain things that were definitely his fault, and there were other things where I'm just like, I don't know, man. Sometimes you just get pile drove. Like, it is what it is.
I mean, it makes sense in the way that they still have to get Fielder US visa, so you can play on 200 ping again.
Sure, exactly.
The buff, the 200 ping buff.
Yeah, that was one of my big concerns. Is like, okay, if you ask 20 different community members, again, just like the average, well, not the average, but like avid Overwatch League watchers, and you were to ask them like, who would you rather start on this roster, Rappel or fielder, especially after last season, I think 19 out of the 20 of those people probably are going to say fielder. Mm-hmm. But when you rebuild a team that you've already coached, and looking at this from Russia's perspective, do you find comfort in playing Repel and Jexay together, or do you want to kind of like change the mold, kind of put fielder in? Is there something with fielder that he wants to take a step back? Again, who's to say? That was the big problem with me with the support line, is if Repel's actually starting, that's going to be a problem, especially when you start to look at other, the rest of these Overwatch League teams. You put them against a Shock, you put them against, a Gladiators. You start to measure this support line and this support kind of bullpen up against the others. It's fine. It's not jumping off the page. It's not fantastic. It's kind of a problem, especially at the highest level.
But I think as a good team, to make that jump from like good to great team, I think you need a really good flex support, because it, at least like with this meta in particular, flex support is like super important, like hyper important. Like we saw, talking about the Charge, the one game, like the times that we saw Charge like actually be good was when Kariv was on Ana, and he's literally like carried on Ana. And like we even been on this Discord about like, roll star Kariv, right? But kudos to him. His Ana looked phenomenal. It actually carried them for that. Like,
I'll give him the Zen too. I think he fragged out of his mind on Zen. Go back and watch those games.
Against Shanghai, he had some issues where like Lip would just throw Translocator in and he would like trance every time, when it's like at like this point, like you got to know that he's trying to bait out trance.
Yeah.
Like you can't be doing that against, like, especially when Lip has done it like every single time and you keep like falling for it. Like you gotta, something's gotta.
It's either that or you die. Like I don't know. I don't.
But if he's done it once, like and he's continuously doing it, you can't keep falling for it.
Paper thin hands is what I said.
Yeah.
Just really...
it is. I feel like it is an apt criticism. I can't take that. I there's not a ton of ground to fight on that. I give them. I have to give the players credit though. That's a tough call to make.
Yeah. Besides, it's definitely a hard thing to do. But besides that, like I think I agree that like Kariv, like the Ana was really good, and the Zen had some really good moments too. It's just that trance against EMP is such an important interaction that if you are screwing that up as much as I think Kariv was, it kind of diminishes your performance just a tad. So I think flex support is just so, like, every single, in this past like current month of Overwatch, a lot of the teams that we've seen that are good have like really good flex supports. Like, CC1 Gauntlet, not because of 1987, but 1987 was a huge part of that team.
Violet basically kind of got robbed. From the AL finals. I think he had a fantastic showing. The final moment that hopefully memory serves me. You've got Super coming around the 2v1, Super and Violet coming around the flank, and Dark on Hollywood, and they're pounding like an absolute stellar performance. Like flex supports just aren't going anywhere. Like they're so really important. Obviously more important in some places, but easily is this the quarterback of an Overwatch League team? Like, do you want to invest like all of your cap space, let's say, in to the flex support, or like where would you want to put that? I not a question maybe we want to get into, but thinking about it, it's just like, man, flex support's really important.
Yeah,
overly important.
I think it's really meta dependent, right?
Yeah, because then they're playing Moira, and it's just like,
like
or you play double flex support.
Sure.
Or you play double main support.
Yeah,
that can happen.
It's kind of hard to pop off on Moira, right? It's like, it's not the easiest thing.
100%.
You can make a difference for sure, but it's not like the mechanical difference that you would otherwise see, and in that regard, make the difference, right? Now, okay, so I think we accurately, pretty much everyone that had an idea behind the scenes how these players performed and what their scrim performance would be, had an inkling that the backline would be one of the shaky parts of Dallas. While I personally won't overrate what we saw, like I also wasn't disproven of that fact during NeXT. Now, the other thing that we clearly pointed out as a weakness for the Dallas Fuel is a lack of a Tracer player.
Yep.
And I remember our main man Rush pointing out, well, she's pretty easy to learn. Now, we're also aware that this is Twitter. I personally read it in a sarcastic tone because I don't think that's really
True.
That's just
what
not
anyone
something you
thinks.
throw around. Yeah.
Like, I think, for instance, in the Asian region, there were like 2 good Tracer players, and there's coincidentally now on one team, and one is actually not that.
And
good
we're gonna
anymore.
we're gonna have to walk back that statement because one of them is oof.
So
We'll get to him.
And we can also talk about if new Tracer specialists came into the Asian region, but generally speaking, like, there's a reason why Sombra is played over this. Now, if you are forced to play Tracer, that's a problem. And it has been a problem for Dallas. So what did you think was anything revealed in that regard during NeXT?
I think Kenobi kind of echoes that same point where it's just like they don't have that dedicated Tracer. And even then, it felt like the other option, and maybe you two can chime in or support or deny this claim, but it felt like the only other option to some of these metas was either Echo or Sombra.
Mm-hmm.
And while they have a good Sombra player on their team, didn't quite see a lot of, didn't see too terribly much of Doha.
Okay, let me rephrase the question then.
Okay.
Do you trust Sparkle to become a top tier Tracer player in 2021?
Well, then, like, who do you play on? Okay, so that would mean that Doha is playing Project.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Sparkle. I mean, Sparkle is like a generational talent. It's going to take a long time, and I think like if it come like April, he's probably not going to be like top tier Tracer. But I think if given enough time, I think with the amount of just raw mechanical talent that Sparkle has, I think it is definitely a possibility for him to be like a pretty good Tracer player if given enough time. But the question is, do you want to?
Yeah.
Like, you have to make a decision that Sparkle is going to be our dedicated Tracer player. You're going to have to like lab it. You're going to have to just play like a bunch of ranked games of just Tracer, only Tracer in scrims, like stuff like that. You have to learn this character inside and out, or it's like, or we have to just sign another Tracer.
Or you just pick up one.
Yeah. You just get innovation from Team CC. There you go. You're done. You have your Tracer specialist for ever.
Right.
You know?
Or do you force XEI to learn it?
I think that's probably the better solution. That was my big like attacking point with Sparkle trying to, spend a lot of his time on Tracer. It's just like, do we want to waste somebody who is shown to be like a stellar projectile player and has like this breadth to him and kind of bottleneck him into just playing Tracer? It feels like that's not necessarily the most valuable. I think taking somebody like Erkey, who, is known for more, hit scan, mid-range, mid to long range hit scan, characters, Ashe, Widow, McCree, stuff like that. Obviously, we saw that. And trying to get him back into the fold, putting him on Tracer, I think trying that would be interesting. Obviously, I think the easy way out is to do what Kenobi said and just kind of pick one up. And that solves your problems real quick, especially going into the season. You don't have to gamble on somebody who, obviously Rush knows these people. I would trust that he would be able to make that assertion on his own, but you don't have to wait for somebody to kind of pick it up and it hits when it needs to, that kind of thing. Like you just have it when you need it and you can call upon it.
Right.
When the time comes.
Right. Any other thoughts about Dallas Fuel, or should we move on to the next surprise?
I think we got most of it out. It was just kind of underwhelming. Obviously, if I think Avril said it right. If there's ever a time to lose, it'd probably be right now.
True, yeah.
Hopefully this is an eye opener and it's a wake up call. They get up and they start to hit the scrims hard and they come into April looking really strong. Mm-hmm. That very well could be the case. But starting off on a not the right foot, let's say.
Yeah, and again, I wouldn't overstress if I'm Astra. I'm not necessarily getting my checkbook just yet.
I mean, this isn't where you just like.
Yeah, this is not abandon.
This isn't emergency meeting type stuff, right? This is.
And again, you're playing against some like
good teams.
Yeah,
good teams.
Probably like majority of them are better than the competition you're going to have in an A.
Exactly. So like once you actually start beating up on, who in NA.
I mean, yes.
Won't look so bad.
You won't have anything to any teams that you should reliably bleed, but you probably have the same amount of teams that probably are as good as the.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
100%. The crux of that is like the confidence.
Yeah, because
if you were to be put in Asia and you lose every single game week after week after week after week, you play the Charge, you lose, you play the Spark, you lose, you play Shanghai, you lose. That does something to a team. You know that.
Fair. Yeah. And
if every other week I get a Vancouver Titans, okay, I'm feeling all right.
Yeah.
You know, you might take some other teams close. You know, that kind of thing.
And my thinking is just like thinking about how much more weight is now in the tournaments, and the feeling of having to play like for your playing spots against Asia and NA. I suppose you can get a little more lucky, but as soon as you then get into the knockout stages, like you're competing against anyone anyway, so whatever. Right now, not necessarily as big of a surprise, but maybe I had hoped to see a little bit more of Dallas, to be honest. But
I mean, we'll get to see more of them.
They get one more match.
The team that I didn't expect to see so much so early from, and so good, and where I was actually thinking if I overvalue them, actually clapped a lot of good teams this weekend. And of course, I'm talking about Seoul. And maybe my sleep-deprived brain is recalling this entirely incorrectly, but I remember that preseasons, usually, at least in the last season most definitely, I'm not sure from season 1 to season 2, aren't exactly Seoul's forte. Now, of course, there's not much overlap, but what I will say is, like, some of those players on the team have sometimes looked like they actually took a break, which is fair and is probably also going to help towards getting ready and in good spirits, right? Now, we also are very far away, but for that, Seoul looked surprisingly good. And just to get to jump onto that topic first, I think one player I would like to highlight, it's not, it's not. Despite Profit, is
I
Toyou.
was gonna say, Toyou. I think he popped off like super hard on like the flex tank role. I didn't expect full disclosure. I really didn't know a lot about Toyou coming into Overwatch League. Sorry, my dog is barking. I don't know.
You're good.
But I think that was the real person that really like Profit. Obviously, is going to be Profit.
Yes.
Gesture's going to be Gesture, but Toyou came out of like nowhere for me as like someone who I think actually is going to be an incredibly talented main or flex tank in this region, in a region that's already like super high in terms of like flex tank. You got Krong, you've got Liga, you've got Bernard, like you've Void. Obviously, there are a lot of really good flex tanks, and Toyou was like, okay, yeah, I'm still here. He played against Void,
for sure.
He's definitely up there for me.
100%. I'm gonna start I gotta put my boy Marvel Marv1 on display here. I think he's been an absolute workhorse for this team since being picked up. You look at 2019 coming in on the Sigma, looking lights out, fantastic on the hero, coming in as their ball player now. Again, some work needs to be done. Not the most fantastic, but at least he's on the map. At least he's present. Is he present in the kill feed dying first sometimes? Yes, 100%. I feel like that's kind of just a ball player thing. Kenobi, what's one of the live and die by the Gaga sword for Team CC?
Oh, yeah.
He can feed sometimes, right?
You can feed,
I feel like that's just a thing ball players need. You need to be in there.
Yeah.
You need to get in there elbow deep sometimes, and sometimes you get picked. Sometimes it's not clean. Sometimes you get hacked, right?
Yeah,
that's what I saw from Marvel. Yep. I saw him on the map. I felt his presence when I watched these games. Fearless, for example. Again, somebody who I rated as probably the worst ball at this event. Just wasn't, he was invisible. It didn't feel like Dallas was doing anything. It didn't feel like he was in there making space. There were times where obviously, he's in mid-fight and cleaning up kills, but he wasn't getting his team in there. Marvel was. And that's where I'm like, you know what? Not getting a whole lot of love. Toyou for sure. Big standout performance. I feel like if this would have been his rookie year, I feel like you might be able to give him an early rookie of the year nod and be like, okay, maybe we can talk about the ballot. Might not win,
Yeah.
But you start to look at the ballot, kind of ruined from last season, only coming in. But this is a team. Seoul kind of schlapping.
I kind of want to talk a little bit about the Toyou thing because I actually, in part, like, I feel like from how I thought about this, I almost have to emotionally, like, say sorry to Seoul. Because in my mind, I was trying to piece together, like, all the offseason, okay, who could be going there, right? And then GBS wasn't connected to anyone for a long time, so I thought, maybe that's the shoe-in. While the answer was there all along. And I think if I had paid more attention towards those games that Toyou played, then you could have probably seen that there's a reason they would be putting a couple of eggs in that basket. And, well, again, it's Nexus Cup. We shouldn't be over-evaluating. It's very likely that a guy like this also grinds through the entire offseason, therefore having like a practice head start. Once again, not talking about any, behind-the-scenes information, just like extrapolating from behavior that hungry players usually display in these positions. Then, I still am really happy about the trajectory that his career has taken recently. And we have to think a little bit differently about these pieces in general. Because, like, okay, so let's do the on paper thing, right? Which other position, other than obviously Profit, would you have given Seoul ahead of, for instance, a team like Dallas on paper?
On paper with this roster.
Main support?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Even though it's, like, in my mind, it wasn't the greatest pickup, but yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, neither did I.
Well, I don't think, like, but I think I would, I don't know, actually.
Would it be fair to kind of give Fitz a nod just because he's kind of taking up two slots where Dallas has two specific people to fill his one role? Where Fitz can be your mid to long range, but also has a little bit more flexibility that XE doesn't have and Doha kind of doesn't have either.
Yeah. And to be fair, like, we didn't see the full XE last season, so we don't really know where he could have been developed.
Sure.
If his neck had held up, but like, that's a fair shout, even though I will say Fitz was definitely below his admittedly extremely high expectations coming into what I heard from scrims in the pre-season 3. And really, his form only caught up to his reputation during the playoff run, where he was monstering people.
I think he was good. I think he was good to this tournament too. Like, I think he
I think he had a great. He's having a great tournament now, but even going back and looking at the May Melee tournament, unless you're considering that playoffs.
No, like, okay. What I mean is to have a sort of consistency over a representative amount of weeks.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Definitely inconsistent. Hit or miss on what kind of fit shows up. It's night and day. If you take off those nameplates and you show me some of his clips, you'd be surprised to hear that's the same player for sure. 100%. Could you not argue even 1-to-1 when it comes to main tank?
Okay, so, well, which...
I feel like you could do either for Fearless. You could do Marvel for Fearless, and I'm like, I'm not mad at that. And I don't think Fearless is a bad player.
It depends on the hero, though, because, like...
Sure, I think both. I think
kill him, chat.
I like Marvel a lot. I think he's a workhorse. I look at him a lot. I look at Rio. I think Rio is big slept on because he's so diverse. Not necessarily an all-star main tank, but he doesn't have those duds that a lot of main tanks do. Gesture obviously has those duds. He also has some heroes he quite excels at. Looks like Fearless might be the same way. It's something that I hinted at going back and looking at their playoff performance on Shanghai. He was woefully absent in that playoff performance. I wonder why. Why did Stan 1 come in?
I feel like for Fearless, it's like there's just really one glaring issue, and it's the ball. Like, I think everything else is.
Yeah, I think he's good all around, and that's where I'm like, well, I don't know. Could you argue it? I think there's some arguments to be made that you might want Marvel, you might want Gesture. I think there's you can have that discussion. I don't think it's just cut and dry. Oh, I want Fearless. It's like, well,
no. I mean, there's a benefit. You don't have to have either Marvel or Gesture. You can have Marvel and Gesture as Soul at the same time.
On the same team.
Yeah,
exactly.
While Well, so has Dallas has nobody covering.
Yeah.
That's again, go back, preseason in 2020. Teams are going to need to kind of build out that main tank bullpen. You need multiple main tank. Well, okay, I shouldn't say you need, but it is going to be highly beneficial moving forward if you either have a contenders team with an Overwatch League main tank at the ready, or you have multiple signed on your Overwatch League roster. I think it's going to be like imperative that you have a deep tank roster. And that could be, again, flex tanks. Maybe they can come over. You have somebody like Marvel who can play flex, can be the off Orisa, can be the off Sigma. Again, I don't know if he can be a Diva or a Zarya. That's going a little too maybe out of my wheelhouse. But again, he's a workhorse for this team. Not an all-star, but just somebody who comes in, does his job, and does it pretty well.
Yeah, he's a role player. I mean, that's the best way to put it, where it's just like he's there, he's gonna do the damn thing. It's not gonna be great, but it's gonna be there.
It's not gonna be bad.
Yeah, it's not gonna be bad, which is like something that I think that a lot of teams could
benefit
learn from. That just having someone who is going to be that rock in your team, who's just not gonna might not be flashy, might not be game winning, but it'll do the job to let the other players really have those moments where, if you have a Prophet's the one who's going to carry a lot of them.
Sure.
And even, Toyou had those moments. Like I remember on the end of Gibraltar where there's this overtime fight happening right at the end and he's getting 2 graviton surges in before someone gets 2 nano. That's insanity. So I think you're right in having the ability, Fearless is really good at the heroes he's good at. I think his Ryan, his Winston, and his Orisa are pretty good. His Winston's obviously we know from last year on Shanghai, where his Winston comes in and just bodies people, right?
Oh, for sure.
And then we have this ball, which is a pretty big issue.
Yeah, I think I'm interested to see. It's something that I'm gonna have to definitely look at when I do my power rankings. But it's is this just an issue against top teams, or do we have other examples, especially when it comes to NA teams, where it's just oh, okay, this matchup that's starting to look a little fishy because of the meta that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle, at least off the top of my head, where I look at NA teams and I'm oh, they have a good ball player, they might be able to excel this meta in particular, or in future wrecking ball metas, where Dallas again might not look as problematic, if that's the word I want to use. They won't look so weak when it comes to the wrecking ball, because I don't know that anybody else is going to really kind of push them on that. Yeah, I look at a team like Chengdu, for example. Kenobi coming in with the Chengdu stannery. Gaga coming in. I think Chengdu has a great shot, especially in this meta, and doing extremely well.
Before we move on to them, right?
Yeah. I just using it as a highlighting point
to sort of do the John and reel it in. I think one thing that needs to be addressed is, okay, so here's where either I think about Overwatch way too simplistically, which is very possible, given that the team did have a lot of success, so there might be some intangible reason as to why. But otherwise, I don't feel particularly disproven that Sebiobi's at least on-server performance was something that would add to the Seoul Dynasty during this tournament. I feel like this man has turned into a sandbag dispenser, which he ejects through his front teeth, and basically at every given point is just a worse version of Prophet in that position.
God, he was tragic, man.
And he was not the match they lost. It was just
worse yet. It's not like you might rightly say, well, you could play alongside each other if you play Samura and Tracer and whatever, or Echo.
Sure.
That's also Fitz, dude. And Fitz also look better.
Yeah.
Where's the space for Sebiobi other than giving a very energizing, I'm sure, pat on the back for these guys? Is he the new Jake, or is he Jake for that team?
That's the only. That's where I kind of have to lean, just because we only saw him on Assault. I think again, I wrote in the article where it's I don't think it's a surprise, or nor is it a coincidence that you take somebody who has been applauded for their leadership skills and you put them in the roster on arguably the most coordinated map type that we have, right? I don't think that's just a surprise. Maybe that, again, put on my tinfoil hat. I'm going to go into the anime zone for a second. Maybe they're just, sandbagging that because they know that they're bad. So they're trying to get Seoul playtime. I don't know. Even if that's the case, the playtime that he did get, call the Fantastic Four. I think we have a new invisible person, just was not there. Here's a fun little stat line. His first pulse bomb took him, again, first pulse bomb in a Seoul Dynasty jersey on stage, took him 1 minute and 32 seconds to charge. He didn't use said pulse bomb for 2 minutes and 28 seconds later.
It
was rough.
To give you an idea, during some metas, some Tracer players, I think, had a usage rate which was very low, but of 45 seconds or something. It's rough.
It's rough.
I don't know what he, besides the whole he is going to be the big brother, quote unquote, where it's just he's going to be everyone remembers the moment with Flower on stage where he's talking with him, and that's possibly for a team that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, has some volatility in terms of their mental. Having someone like Seoul be there is something that could probably help that, because I don't see realistically, especially after what we've seen this tournament, where he fits, because we have someone called Fitz who is the person who actually does do that.
Yep. And you have somebody like Prophet. You don't need a dedicated Tracer player because you have arguably one of the most, if not the most, dominant Tracer player.
Yeah.
Again, I think he's evolved. Not even evolved. I think the light has been shed on his career thus far, that he isn't just some sort of, slave to gesture where he needs that duo synergy to be able to excel on this hero. He was the Brig Hunter in the Nexus, and the support lines were clenching their proverbial butt cheeks together because he was just on the map. Again, I think Avril said it best. He brings that threat just being on the server. That's the kind of all-star potential that you put on the server, and you're already, okay, where is he? Which way is he coming from? You're already there. Where you put somebody like Seoul and he's nowhere to be found, you can expend those mental resources or those physical resources in the server elsewhere to help your team. I think if you gave them another kind of fit style character, again, let's say, for instance, I saw this on Reddit this morning, skimming through, checking my little news feed. Let's just say, Seoul Dynasty signs a little guy named Libero. I'm inclined to say that maybe we're in title contention. Maybe the Seoul Dynasty might be nearing a title. You sign somebody like that, somebody like Fitz, somebody like Prophet, Gesture, Marvel. Again, you go down the list. I'd like a slightly better. I think Creative had an okay performance this tournament. Again, tournament's not over, to be fair, but they're looking quite good.
I liked
quite
Creative,
good.
Actually.
It was fine.
For someone who, I don't know, I didn't know a lot about Creative coming in, but for someone who didn't really know, I was like, okay, yeah, there's some good things here. He's not again, in the flex support role, I think you need to be extremely good, and he's not that. I don't think he's
he's not a detriment.
He's not a detriment. No, he's a role player where it's he's the rock, and then you just have him not die, or
and that's where I'm like, can you really put a championship prediction on a team with a milk toast flex support? That's where I'm like, oh, I want to. My heart, even a couple shows back, I'm like, there's something about Seoul this season. I'm like, you know what? Maybe they can do it. They got close last season, and this tournament's given a lot of faith. But I'm not sure. I'm very hesitant to go. You know what? Creative's gonna lead this team. Again, not a bad player by any means, but I'll agree with Kenobi. Role player kind of status.
Right. Is there anything else you want to talk about this team in particular, or
other than I think just being kind of surprised again? Yeah. Just bringing back that point, just being a little surprised at how well they're doing. Coordinated to a degree, look practiced, which echoes what Seoul Dynasty staff has been saying for at least a few weeks now, that they're already in scrims and they're looking good. I think we're seeing the fruits of that labor on display at the Nexus. So shout outs to Seoul. Asia looking. I think everybody was kind of coming into this, coming into the 2021 season, going, oh yeah, I think Asia could be better. I think after this event, I'd be hard pressed to find anybody that would argue otherwise at this point. I think it's like cemented in stone now, with the Charge looking as good as they are, with Seoul looking, at least right now, as good as they are, Shanghai looking quite strong. Asia looks pretty dominant. It looks head and shoulders above. Obviously, that could change with the metas, but right now, quite Asia.
I was watching Avril's stream actually, and he was like, there wasn't a team in Asia right now that I think is like bad. Like, there's not a team where I'm just like, this team's awful. This team I can definitely put it in last place. Like, this is not like a region that has like a Vancouver Titan. Sorry to all the Vancouver fans out there, but Vancouver is who we're placing last a lot of the time. And in APAC, there isn't a team like that. There is just such a Valiant in Asia.
Valiant is in Asia. We'll get to that.
About that, but
even then, again, depends.
With the rumors that I've heard, that team I don't think is also like last either, depending on like what happens with signings are. But
it depends on, again, who they sign. But like, even then, like, you got to sign some big hitters if you're gonna not be last.
Which they
might just be last.
We'll leave the juice for last, guys.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll have our sweet enjoyment about that entire thing at the end of the episode. Now, okay, I think one team that also needs to be discussed is we cannot talk about this, Season 3 best APAC team throughout the season very clearly. Are you at all concerned from Shanghai after their performances at NeXT?
No. I would have liked to see everybody kind of get some stage time. I was kind of impressed by Fate. I'm interested to see your guys' opinion on him. I thought that I don't know what I was expecting with him on Wrecking Ball, but I think he really kind of lived up to or kind of exceeded my expectations. I kind of viewed him coming into this almost like a Marvel, where it's just like, I'm sure he'll do fine. But I thought he excelled. I thought he did really well. I was quite impressed with his ball performance. Outside of that, it was kind of the same old song and dance. I feel like this is another one of those teams that, takes that same Dallas caveat that's like, okay, well, if let's say they weren't practicing as much or they weren't taking this as seriously, hard to say. But when things went wrong, when Lip dies a little too early or hits these low value EMPs, like Avril's been saying, team just kind of falls apart. It really doesn't know how to play a man down or with low resources just yet. So I think that's going to get ironed out in practice. Same, overperformance or continuing to overperform. You've got Lip kind of underperforming, if anything. But Fleta, Lee Jae-gon, Fate looking lights out. Again, I don't think this is so much of an underperformance that you can kind of mark Shanghai down coming into the season. I think they're definitely still going to be a top team. The best team, that might be a little bit more debatable at this point.
So you don't foresee them having a similar dominant performance as they did last season?
That's tough to say. I think I'd be willing to make that claim maybe after the event's done, where it's like, okay, if they don't win this event and they go close with Seoul again to like a near game 5, yeah, maybe they aren't just going to be head and shoulders the best. I don't know if there is going to be a head and shoulders best team in Asia. I think it just might be trading back and forth month by month between, again, this is presuming that a team like, the Spark are as good as we're all hyping them up to be, which, with that kind of talent and that much of it, you got to swing and miss pretty hard if you're going to mess that up. Chengdu in the same way. Maybe they're meta dependent, but I think they can peak really hard, especially in metas like these. And then you've got the Valiant, so I don't think they're here in the top anytime soon. But, who knows? I've seen weirder things.
Kenobi, I noticed in your face that Joe said something at the beginning of his little monologue, which made your face look like someone just shoved your kid at the playground. What did you take issue with?
I don't think I took issue with anything. I think I I don't even remember what it was. I think you're reading too much into my face.
I think there was some blasphemy towards Shanghai in there.
I mean, this team is like this. First of all, they don't have Molly. Molly instantly upgrades this. Like instantly. Izayaki was fine, but Molly is someone who is going to make this team like way better. Also, I don't think there is. I think he's right. Joe is like there isn't going to be a best team in APAC. I think it's just going to be like this team. This region's so strong where it's like I can't put someone at the top. If I like had to, if you're putting a gun to my head, I'd probably say Seoul at this point because of what we've seen from Nexus. But like I really can't see a team being so far ahead like Shanghai. It just doesn't. It like last season because Chengdu really wasn't good last season. Chengdu's pretty good now, I would say. Spark was having their own issues. They're pretty good now. Again, there's a lot of Phillies in this region now.
True, yeah.
There's so much good freaking talent in this region that I think Shanghai is not going to be the same dominant beast that we saw, which I think is good for the region because I think Shanghai really just like cleaned everyone up except for the May Melee where Charge won because Eileen was playing Genji and Eileen basically, carried the team. So I didn't really have anything wrong with what Joe said.
That kind of makes me really excited. The way that you were kind of like posing that, I'm just like, man, Asia's going to be even more of a churn of talent where it's just like, we're going to get some banger matches. Hopefully, again, presumably, if all of our estimations of these teams are good and Valiant, best of luck. And they're okay at least. There's going to be a ton of competition. The practice is going to be insane in Asia. And it's like, do we just give Asia the championship right now? Just somebody from Asia wins? Oh, who from NA is really going to stand up against that? Maybe the Shock? Everybody else, Glads, yeah, maybe. Washington, again, it feels weird saying, but they could be.
I mean, that's the beauty of this next season, that we'll probably think much less about the regions because we will care more about these tournaments.
Yeah.
And if we deem that this competition is held with enough integrity, where the ping doesn't matter that much, then I think our perception of how this league works and how compartmentalizing probably doesn't make as much sense. I think we will eventually more lead into a power ranking, at least for the top teams, where we are actually talking about the best team in the world once more, not just the best team in Asia or
in a region.
NA. Yeah. Of course, that discourse will still be around because the qualification will be hard. But yeah, like in general.
I mean, you also have to qualify all the rest of the places. Top 5, I think, is definitely something that people want to argue till the cows come home. Oh, is this player a top 5 at this role?
Right.
Is this team a top 5 in general? So yeah, we might have a better concrete answer at number 1, but we've got positions 2, 3, 4, 5 to kind of sit and argue about. If the Justice didn't play the charge come, April's tournament or, whatever tournament, June's tournament, maybe that's an argument to be had. If they were to play, who would win? Again, super fun. And that's the beauty of this format is that sometimes you aren't just going to be able to play.
Right. Yeah.
You can have those discussions. So yeah, super exciting.
Now, I think we can talk about one more team until we get juicy. Now, would you rather talk about Charge, which honestly quite surprised me? Or would you... Why am I asking you this? Or would you like to talk about Chengdu?
I mean, I'm kind of surprised. What do you want to talk about with Chengdu?
Yeah, what do you like? I feel like when we talk about Chengdu, it's like we haven't seen them yet.
Yeah.
They would,
but
to be fair, I think if they played in this tournament, they would crush. They would be very good in this tournament.
Okay, so then let me. No, I don't feel that's proper to talk about. Like I was thinking about bringing NYXL into the fray, but like the footage.
Can I get a temperature check? I haven't seen that, by the way. Can we get a temperature check on NYXL in Asia?
I haven't either.
Yiska, you go first.
I think they're better than I initially anticipated.
Okay.
Not going to go into any detail on the reasons why, or I also honestly don't think it is proper that when a team requested to not use the their leaked scrimbots for content creation. That I think that should be honest.
People do it anyways. Yeah. Unlucky.
So I agree that it's sort of like a victimless crime in some sense, but I think there's something to be said about integrity and personal boundaries, and that which should be respected. It was an honest mistake. Keep in mind, NYXL is also not the one that caused this. So I don't know. Not my style.
Now is that kind of take looking at them kind of surprising you in a way? Is that more because you placed them kind of low?
Yes.
Or is that just them actually surprising you?
Yeah, because like it's hard ranking people in the APAC region.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But like who would you have had as the weakest team in the APAC region? Because Seoul is out. Seoul is probably not it.
Well, yeah, before Valiant, yeah,
I don't know
it's tough.
if there is like a weakest like
right now.
Charge probably, but Charge this tournament.
Yeah, I think Charge was definitely in discussion before this tournament again, like Kenobi was saying. And if you're going before Valiant, it's tough. It's tough, and I think maybe NYXL could have battled for that. But with these kind of caveats in mind, I'm still kind of cold. I need to see something from them that isn't just a leak scrimbot, right? Like I'm not gonna.
Yeah,
right.
I haven't seen it, so like I don't.
Neither have I.
About it,
so I can't comment on it even if I wanted
to.
So have Charge exceeded your expectations for that team?
Very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like so much better than I thought they would be. I could like specifically Kareev, who like we meme about again. We talked about.
Yeah, I'm ready to eat crow.
Rollstar Kareev, we meme about it. Anna literally carried Temple of Anubis for them.
Chill out. It's one cup.
He carried
it. Yes, he was very good.
Kind of pounded.
Oh, he did. He did.
Carried them that map.
He did.
Like
I looked at that game and I said that kid fucks.
Not ready to say top 5, flex support in APAC, but his Ana looked incredible. He fragged out of his mind on that.
Yeah.
And his Zen, I think, needs work. Like I talked about earlier with like the Transcendence usage. Wasn't a big fan of it, but I was expecting him to like not do anything, right? And now he's coming in and he's actually like pretty decent. Think you still have it. Like Jihoon, I think is a good sign in if you need like that ball player. Jihoon's obviously very good at ball. Essentially a one trick. Like they played him on Rhinus sometimes, but let's be real, he's a ball player.
Yeah,
That's who he is. Eileen does not get enough credit. On this team.
Yeah,
he does not get enough credit as being just like an absolute goon of a freaking DPS. He is nuts, and he does not get enough credit because he's like one of these Chinese players who's on like the charge, like the only one besides my Kaylee, and all like the other attention is on like these other Chinese players like Shy and Leave and Jinmu from Chengdu. But Eileen fucks. I don't have a Go XLR, so I can't believe why not. But he fucks.
Yeah. No, I agree.
This is a summer style performance from him during the Nexus. I thought he was lights out. Again, I think, like you said, Jihoon is a great pickup. I think that, at least to me, signals some kind of future sight from this team to say, look, Wrecking Ball isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And if it's going to be something that we have to deal with, why not pick somebody up like this who can kind of come in when we need him to and, Rio swaps for everything else. Great signing in my eyes. And as somebody who, hasn't necessarily caught up with Korean contenders all that much, I thought Choi had a fantastic rookie showing. Obviously not his debut in the Overwatch League, but if this is what we can expect from him on stage, Charge are dangerous.
Yeah.
I'm even higher on Kareev. I looked at I test compare these to the rest of the supports that we've seen in the Nexus so far. I'm kind of ready to say Kareev was the best performance we've seen when it came from Flex. I thought he pounded, carried fights by himself. EMP sleeping people just across map, drilling kids on Zen. Yeah, sure. I have to, admit, Transcendence usage is not necessarily the best, but there was plenty of other, Flex supports whose trances weren't fantastic either. But nobody really kind of showcased that much kind of fragging potential that Kareev did as well. And that's where I'm just like, man, they've got some threats on this team. You've got to shut down a whole lot of people if you want to shut Charge up. They're just going to drill you cross map consistently. This is a scary team. I thought Mondi was good. Krong obviously continues to be great. Kaylee looked great in the maps that we saw him. I think it was on Volskaya. He started popping off. Just this is a dangerous team.
Is it's like I was very adamant that like my Kaylee was like a weird signing because I thought it should be Dia. My Kaylee looks good. I can't take anything away from the kid. Everything that everything that I've heard about, like he's just like a nutty aimer. He's extremely good. Like, yeah, he is. I don't think that this is like a signing where it's like, oh, I wish this was Dia anymore. This is a really good signing. As much as I do wish Dia was an Al, I can understand now why Guangzhou charged on with this guy because he actually is incredibly good.
Yeah. Now, okay. So let's get into. I think Dia is a good segue into this.
Segue into the juice.
There once was a man who walked into the darkness, saw very little light at the end of the tunnel, and was ready to lie down and give it all up. And then the unimaginable happened. A black swan event. Nobody saw it coming. And suddenly there's hope. Now, once again, like I'm not going to add anything to the towards the information that's being put out. To a large degree, I think there was some irresponsible reporting there anyway. But the bottom line being that I think what we can assume is that this team is going to be rebuilt largely. And in a way, that means two things. First off, it means a new team will have to be built in Asia. And that is confirmed information. Of course, the Valiant will be playing in Asia, at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
And the other implication of all of this, we feel a little bit more comfortable talking about, is that a lot of top or very good talent will enter the pool. Right? Now, there are... Did I do this now? Would it be cringe now? Would it be cringe, Joe?
It'd be cringe.
We're doing it. I mean, if nothing else, I'm known for being cringe. So, hello. Hey, Valiant, what are you doing over there? Are you like, oh, you're cooking Chinese? Right. Do you have any leftovers from last week, like a KSP or a Shax I could buy off of you, like for cheap, guys? Like, okay, that this is how far I will go with this. What's this sitcom called where this guy never showed his face?
Home Improvement.
Yeah, Home Improvement, right. So, okay. Now, let's start probably with a China faction's favorite topic. Of course, let's assume, for the sake of the argument, that let's say 8 slots or so, or like whatever a team might be, or more, players will be recruited for this particular situation. Who would you pick?
I mean, like, okay, so I would go on to the assumption this will not be a full Chinese. I don't think that would be the.
So let's just say it was, though.
You can't. I don't think it's possible. Like, unless you're.
It's possible. It's just not gonna be very good.
I don't think it's good. Would be
no.
I think that like you would have to take pieces from other Chinese or like other teams that have Chinese players. Like you get Dia, you get Super Rich, and you get Innovation. Those are 3 players that I think are very good. You get No Hill as your coach. I think you bring him along. Okay. I don't think that there are that you can make like, okay, so let me be frank with you. China at the moment has a very low lacking level of talent that can be brought to Overwatch. I think just because of age and because we don't know enough about these players. Like everyone who should have gone up is basically already up. Like there are a few players like I think Over maybe I don't really Over had some issues during during the season, wasn't like didn't even end up playing towards the back end of it during Gauntlet. Like it was Yahoo was playing. Yep. Like You maybe bring up some of the team chaser players, like Aprita and Monk, I think are two people who you can bring up. Shou Chang, if he's starting to play flex tank, maybe you bring up Shou Chang. Don't say is someone. Winter, Zijin. There are options, but if you want to make a good team, you will make this team half Korean and half.
No.
But you get Shy, Super Rich, and not Shy. You get Super Rich, Dia, and Innovation, and No Hill. That is a good start.
Okay.
That is something that you can build around for sure. Because I think No Hill deserves a lot of credit. Like we talk a lot about players here. No Hill deserves a lot of credit because No Hill was also the coach of LG Huya. And while they did do, pretty poorly in Gauntlet, after what I saw from Dokebi last season, I'm starting to believe that was more of Dokebi's than anything. So I give a lot of credit to No Hill being someone who, because like there was actually a point, like the reason that Team CC I think lost to Flag Gaming was No Hill actually wasn't able to coach them. Like he said on Twitter, like he was doing university stuff and wasn't able to be there. And that's the only time Team CC lost. When No Hill is with that team, they like beat everyone. They beat Flag. They beat, all these Korean teams. So No Hill, I think, deserves a lot of credit as being someone who is very pivotal in Team CC.
I mean, he makes some good points. So you would take...
You can't take Spectra too, but I would take Spectra. You can't take him because he's like 15. But I would take Spectra. Take him to your academy, if LA Valiant.
That's and
that's
where it's like, where else do you go? Obviously, GBS is, at least on the market, from my understanding.
You get the runaway players,
right?
Yeah,
just get the runaway players. You get Assassin. You get where are the other? Revenge. You can just take if you want. I think as well. Like you can just grab most of them because they don't even have buyouts anymore.
Oh yeah, I guess they were let go. I guess, or I don't know. That kind of read to me that they were going somewhere, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, maybe
Yeah, who's to say? 100%.
But that's who I think you get. You get the runaway players, and you get the half of Team CC, and you just meld them together.
Yeah.
Wasn't Wu Xiao playing like ball or something? Or no, they were just playing like hog comps and Gauntlet, right?
Yeah, they didn't have a main tank because Mag wasn't there.
Yeah.
I'm warning who y'all. I've practiced singing since the last time, so if you want a stats pad again, I'm ready. For those that get the
somebody again, Wu Xiao. I think people are. I think
who y'all kick on.
people like shame him and like finger wag him a lot of the time. I still remember when Wu Xiao was big,
was
like
so good, dude. It was
big,
so
like,
good.
and then micro missiles come in, and then Wu Xiao.
Yeah, shorter DM.
Wu Xiao went. He went from Wu Xiao to Hu Yao. Who's playing this diva? Because it ain't very good. Where else would you want to go with this though? From Gauntlet, Gaga's gone. Dia, yeah, I get it.
You get Dia.
I guess my big, or what I'd be interested in is seeing how young some of those team chaser players are. Are Monk and
I think Monk is of age. I believe.
I mean,
also you can't. Also, I don't think you get a Prita if you have innovation already, because I think they're both just tracer players.
I take Monk first pick then.
No, 100%. Monk is like the next best. Yeah, you take Monk because Monk is like the next.
Sorry, Revenge, but I'm going Monk for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you can take Monk. You can take. I mean, you still have the opportunity to take Stole if you want. If you want to,
probably not.
Let's
step away from the gun. Let's not.
Yeah, I mean, and then you have Pineapple, who you could also take, but Pineapple is underage, from my understanding. Yeah. You could take Winter, but Winter is also like a very.
Isn't he just like a Pharah player?
He was a tracer player actually.
Oh really?
Well, he's one of those Chinese DPS that just has like heroes that they're good at and don't really have like a specific role. Where it's like the Pharah is really good, but their tracer's also like super good. They have a McCree somewhere in their back pocket, like stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess that's my big concern is like, okay, if again, we're assuming that Valiant just wipes the slate clean and starts to rebuild, my big questions come in at main tank and main support. Who are we nabbing? There's definitely some.
Not
I guess main
support.
support. No, not main
No,
support. That's right. That's right.
no.
Because you've got super rich, is it?
That looked like my kids got kicked, right?
Yeah,
That's
true. I kicked Kenobi's kid there. You know, wasn't
Super
kick the
Rich
can.
is probably the best main support right now. It's Chinese. I think better than Yveltal. And I really like
For sure.
What's the hero
So
pool
then
like? Give us a little
everything.
Everything.
The only thing he can't play is BAP. That's like the one issue. Lucio's fantastic. Brig fantastic. Mercy is fantastic. Am I missing any other of the main?
Moira is not.
Isn't that flex?
Yeah, it's more flex
Usually,
but yeah.
But yeah,
is there any kind of flex that you feel like he could play at least well enough?
I mean,
or at least I've seen.
Moira's not that hard to play. No, he's mostly been playing. The BAP was like the one thing that was the biggest issue, I think.
In which way?
Team CC No, I think Team CC just didn't know how to like Team CC's BAP issues. I think were the fact that like they weren't comfortable on the heroes. Like he doesn't look like, from my remembering of what happened, it was either like Far Away or it was Super Rich who were having issues on BAP, which is why they lost a couple of times during the first season when the like BAP. I think Brig was like the permanent. So actually, he didn't play BAP. My mistake. He's mostly been like the Brig, the Mercy, the Lucio player, and that's pretty much been it. And it's all been great. There hasn't been a time where I've really looked at Super Rich as being like, this guy's an issue. He's usually been the one actually where whenever the rest of the team CC's having issues, he's the one who I was always like, yeah, this guy's playing fine. Like he was never a detriment to the team, where it's like 1987 when he was there playing Baptiste, it was like there's a bit of an issue there.
And this isn't just his first season doing well either. Like I remember this
he was
kid
on
popping
LGD,
off like for a while.
When he was called Hoyo-chan, like he's really good. And I think he's someone that I was incredibly shocked to not be in Overwatch League, especially because they brought up Chinese main supports, which I don't understand why Super Rich wasn't in that pool. But now maybe he, this is like the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
It might be there in the shape of a Valiant logo.
Giant V coming and sweeping them up.
The thing is, this is not like a telegraphed deal, right? Like, I can tell you, nobody knew this was for sure coming and were saving themselves to play for this team. So why were these players not picked up in the first place?
I have no idea. Like, I was here last time and you're like, Dia didn't perform well in scrims. Screw it if he didn't perform well in scrims. The dude, like, was the best player in Chinese contenders. Like, why is he not on a team? Because you brought up, like, I mean, obviously my Kaylee looks good, but Chengdu brought up Jimmy. Like, you could have brought up Dia. It's not difficult. It wasn't difficult, and it was a good decision.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm generally of the opinion that real life or real match behavior or play should weigh more. I also increasingly trust the judgment of coaches to know what kind of intangible effects they're looking for. So I don't think, like, this is a thing that generally is way too hyperbolized, where there might have been a smidgen of truth to it, or in some cases, like for instance, let's say very early Shanghai Dragons or ever, where there was genuine incompetence on the org side of things, or like the coaches side of things. I think everyone who thinks Overwatch League coaches are stupid is big into Dunning-Kruger. Like, just call it for it. Like, I'll tell you what. I had a lot of just like networking calls, just like trying to get a feel for what the league is like, and I basically never get out of a meeting and don't think, wow, this person is actually really smart. Like, every person I talk to is just like, we're filtering well at this point. And yes, there might still be some bad apples, and there might still be people that are in over their heads in terms of like what kind of positions they're put in. And these will also increasingly go. But like, the quality of coaching and management overall for sure has gone up. And people are actually really knowledgeable about the scene, with just very many aspects of it, which are equally as logical, not really known. So they might look stupid. I think the underlying assumption should not be, wow, are these guys dumb at scouting or at doing X, Y, Z? It should be, what do we not know in this puzzle that we think this looks bad?
Yeah.
Yep.
And like I'm not trying to say that like all the people who like I'm not saying like the coaches were dumb. I hope that didn't come off that way.
No.
Like
I mean the general
I think people hijack that.
Well received from me as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's also not a thing that where it was like, yeah, no, we're definitely not getting Dia. It's more like
it was like
beaten narrowly, but in those considerations, what kind of a person you're looking for.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is why it's like weird to me. It's like, how bad were the scrims, where it's like if that was the real thing, is like no one liked him in the scrims. It's because I don't know, like how bad were they? Because again, this is the player that I think if you asked everyone who's watched Chinese Contenders, Dia was the best player in Chinese Contenders. So what is the piece that we're missing, like you're talking about, where we don't know why he's not there? Because from the outside looking in, like I don't have that much inside knowledge in terms of like what the Chinese orgs are doing, but like from the outside looking in, as someone who's covered the region, it's like you're not taking the best player in the region, and you are also taking who I would deem inferior players in the same role to your team. So what is the disconnect?
Right.
It's
and there's just there's got to be. I mean, I trust in Ray. I trust in Ray. I trust in like the coaching staffs of all these teams. But from the outside looking in, does look a little bit weird. And I would like to eventually, like, I'm not asking for leaks or anything, but it'd be nice to know where that disconnect happened.
I think this season in particular was always going to be tough. And I think those discussions around like, oh my God, how is this player not picked up? How is that player not picked up? With the way the world works right now, especially, I feel for a lot of these teams, because I'd imagine their pockets are running a little thin. So the depth that they might want to hire isn't there. The resources that they might have, they went away. So and we said this before, there's going to be a lot of talent left on the shelf.
Yes.
Whether it be Rascal, Libero, Dia, whoever, you name it, they might just be there till mid-season, and hopefully, like Yiska has been projecting, maybe we get a mid-season signing window. Like, not window opening up from the league's perspective, but just like an increase. Yeah. An increase in terms of, early to mid-season signings, because either of a resource injection, maybe they're selling their GameStop stocks, who knows? To
the moon.
They can get some of these players, left in the pot, because, there are some talent that you'd like to see, but there's got to be a reason. And I obviously have to point towards COVID as kind of that culprit. So,
but no, like, and I will also say, like, reasons why you might not see players in teams that you expect to be, I have to preface this. I don't think any of I actually for sure don't know anything as to why Dia wasn't picked. So why the following attributes might apply to him, I wouldn't know, and it's not a hint towards anything. But there are several different reasons why people might not be in the Overwatch League that you expect him to. Number one reason is I'm not sure. We're not going to do priority. I'm just going to list them. Some people are pricing themselves out of the market, naturally. Some people are considered less good than they are in the perception of the community. Some people bring a personality that is not feasible or desirable for the specific team that they're in, and either their type of character role has already been filled or they expect it to be a problem. Oversaturation of the role is quite often the case. Visa limitations are a thing for sure. I think those are like the big ones, where most of the time these rank higher than orc incompetence. Is basically what I'm saying. That's not to absolve. Like, some organizations having made bad decisions, and we have pointed them out before on this podcast. Seemingly bad decisions, I might say. But, I think in general, it's also a thing of sports. Let's be honest. Like, if you are watching the World Cup, for instance, everyone has an opinion on that, and nobody's remotely correct on what is actually the problem, and everyone has a really limited understanding of the strategy unless they're really deep into it. And then you might have a chance to understand it, and even then you might not, because you don't know what the people behind it are like. There's also an aspect of people wanting to have grinders, wanting to have very coachable players, players that are receptive, learn quickly, those type of attributes we generally don't find out unless the teams talk about them, right? So I think under those ideas, things look very differently. It's in general, it's the case. It's like a lot of people are trying to explore the universe of Overwatch esports and the power levels with rockets and just trying to force their way in. And like, we're going to sit in this rocket, like going to like charge like with full force, and we're going to get to the moon. You're going to get to the moon at best at Mars. The actual way to explore the universe is to do it with radio astronomy and get more sensitive towards the things, towards the little minutia, to listen to the people intently and understand that like there's much more complexity to it than you might initially think there is. And in that sense, I think the assumption just generally should be that these people are very, very smart. Of course, we're like relatively short into this experience, Overwatch Esports, which also keeps ever changing. So experience is like so, and it keeps soft resetting every year. So like this sector, I feel like where familiarity with the source or with the people in the scene doesn't breed content, it breeds understanding of the complexities of the system and about the abilities of the vast majority of people that work this. Because you cannot be like, it's really hard to be a chameleon, to be really like out of your depth and at least not have some skill that you bring to the table. And
I think that's where it's leveling up. That's where it's not, like you said, it's not that people are inept anymore, or that those bad actors have been definitely weeded out. Now it's just the resources aren't there. These people just have way too much to do, way too much stuff to manage, and they don't have anybody to delegate to. And that's the new problem that Overwatch League franchises have to kind of fix, is this. And again, again, we go back to the resource argument where it's just like, we're in COVID. We don't have much resources from the, financial level to be able to hire more coaches or hire more team managers or hire these people that, again, would help, these gems along. And, I look at a team like Paris that's just like, Avala's, trying her hardest. God bless her. Shout outs to her. I'm excited to see what happens with that roster because it doesn't look all that bad. So again, a competitive roster kind of cobbled together. Where's her help? I blame Paris a little bit, but I also go, well, I wonder how much they actually have to work with, how much confidence they have in the product right now, because the legs are swept out from under it. So I don't think it's anybody's fault, right? It's just kind of a state of the world.
Yeah.
As shameful as it is. But the positive thing is that we have grown past a lot of the problematic gatekeepers that were not necessarily keeping people out, but having wrong looks on things or having the wrong decisions. I think I agree with Yiska here that we've definitely progressed past that.
Yeah, I mean, it's still people are casting nets. Yeah. And the size of their nets determine what kind of fish they catch, right? And if you're like a lesser known guy that doesn't have the profile, you're slipping through. It's really easy. Like, there were guys that were scouted towards some top level teams, made it really deep, and nobody else looked at them. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the others are bad at scouting. What it means is you fit the exact mold that they were looking for, and the others teams didn't, right? So there is such a thing as the right player for the right team.
Oh, for sure.
And
yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like there's this like back when like the World Cup analogy where it's like I think in Brazil in 2016, like the US, like Jurgen Klinsmann was coaching, and then like he didn't bring Landon Donovan, who, if you're new to soccer, like he's probably the greatest.
That's like the one soccer player that I feel like everybody knows.
Yeah, he's like the only like he's like the greatest probably US soccer player ever at the current moment. And they didn't bring him. And then like the news media in the US just was like freaked out. Everybody was so upset. And it kind of reminds me of like of this where it's just like maybe there was something like the right player for the right team. Like maybe that's not what Jurgen Klinsmann wanted. And if you're gonna hire a guy to be your coach, and Jurgen Klinsmann is someone who probably has a lot of pedigree, like, or not probably does, literally won a World Cup himself. So, like, I think Yiska's right. It's like there isn't really anyone who's just like dumb. I don't think they're like not making the right decision. I think everyone knows what they're doing. It's just that there are some people who are going to fall through the cracks. He's right, and Dia and Super Rich, who are two people that I'm very, what's the word for? But two people that I really like in terms of their play style, and I think should be in Overwatch League and our Overwatch League talent, just didn't get through until Valiant maybe come along and change.
Right. And often you will also see that some players just like, for instance, I don't think Mac didn't receive any offers last season. He was just chilling with his boys on Runaway. Wanted to play some more there and didn't want to rush it, right?
Yep.
So that's also a part of it, that sometimes players don't want to, right? And that they are happy
100%.
where they are, or like their situation doesn't allow for it. Also, let's keep in mind, we're still in a global pandemic. There are wider life consequences to consider when making these big decisions. Also, like, it's sort of up in the air where you're doing what you're doing, in terms of like where the place is where you're doing it. So, like, this is a really hard thing, and I think the underlying, once again, like, maybe install, like, malware is to think this doesn't make sense, people are stupid. That is your human error code for this league in particular. What should be installed in that place is, what am I missing? What do I not understand about the complexity of this system?
I think one of the big revelations to that, the one big like antivirus that has been installed, especially this season, is now we actually have teams coming out and saying, look, here's our goals. This is what we're aiming to do. So while there's talent on the table that obviously needs to be signed by an Overwatch League team, we're not going to be the ones to do that. Here's why. These are our goals. This is what we're working with. This is what we want to achieve. This is what you can expect from us. Obviously talking about the London Spitfire and their GM Nuki coming out and saying, look, this is, our goals for this team, where we want to be mostly European, if not fully European. This is how we're going to do things. This is what you can expect from us. We'll see you in April.
Yeah.
We don't then go to Spitfire and go, why isn't Rascal on this team? Why isn't Dion on this team? Why? Because we know there has been light shed on that. And I think that's another one of those things where it's just like, we look at Houston in season 1 and we go, okay, is that the most competitive team ever? Yes. Probably not. What kind of goals were they going for? Yep. What was their MO building that team?
Yeah.
If you were to shed some light on that, if there was some, again, not to go all full content mode, but if you were to make and voice that opinion or voice that stance, I think these conversations are a little bit more easier to work around, where it's just like, well, they're rebuilding. They're working at 2022 is their playoff season. Right now they're just kind of restructuring things. This is the bye season. We don't get that kind of conversations. We don't get that kind of, not feedback, but communication from the franchises to say, look, this is what we're doing. This might be the reason why, these talents are left on the shelf.
Let's not forget, like, success in the Overwatch League is not a spectrum. It's a multi-dimensional calculation. And let's not forget why that is. It's because of us, and it's because of you. Because you don't reward winning the league as much as other sports do. Or with attention, with buying merch and whatnot. And if that's not your thing, that's fine. Like, we just interact with different people. But that makes building a successful franchise a way more complicated thing, because suddenly you cannot just care about winning. You got to care about winning with the guy that has the most followers on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And gives the most interviews and the best ones, and you can send on Kimmel. And if he's also the best player in the world, nice. But you get pretty lucky if that happens, right? So, in that sense, like, I think that also always needs to be a multidimensional consideration. There are other limiting factors such as roster building strategies, limitations on your budget, both for buyouts and salary, visas, COVID, reputation of a player, feedback from a community on a player, which are like soft signals towards the popularity of the player eventually and the marketability of him.
Sure.
You build a product with the attraction of sponsors in mind and want to like flesh out the values that we represent that brands can attach to. This is not like, let's just win and get money.
Yeah. I remember having a very heated argument very early on in Overwatch that winning is not necessarily the only way to success.
Mm-hmm.
You can be very successful and win very little. I think the first season taught us that extremely well. How many fans do you think the Shanghai Dragons had, and how many fans do you think the San Francisco Shock had in season 1? Probably a vast majority difference.
Even the Shock even played the streamer game with IDDQD and stuff, right?
Sure.
Just like I would say, Mayhem maybe Mayhem was
sure. Yeah, Mayhem's a better example.
Mayhem.
For sure.
Or Boston.
Shanghai and Mayhem. Well, Boston had those couple stages.
Right, but they didn't have a following immediately, right? That is one of the cases where the difference of expectation to outcome actually helped them get fans. But yeah, overall, like again, it's really hard. Like, and yes, we have new incentive structures, as we pointed out last episode on the article I wrote, that this will, like, doing better will increase your reach in some way, or your opportunity for reach. But then again, like, ideally, you make it there with, like, the best player that is also the most popular player on the planet.
I mean, you're asking for a unicorn at that point.
Yeah. Which we had, and then...
Yep. Then they leave. Why? Yeah. Because this game has problems. I'm not going to get on that soapbox. But what I am going to do is I'm going to pose you both this question.
Yeah.
Sort of. I don't know if I'd have to unpack that a little bit more. So in that way, where, you know, we need more incentive structures, or, you know, having these incentive structures this season is definitely going to help things. Obviously, traditional sports in the States and in Europe are vastly different. Kenobi, I think, is well equipped to handle both of them, being kind of, I don't know, are you a dual citizen? Is that fair to say? Try. Oh, my mistake. My bad. I didn't know we were overachieving. In that way, you know, is this the point where the Overwatch League needs to let franchises sink and swim? Do we kind of need to pull the rug out from underneath them and go, look, you guys better start doing something, or this just isn't going to work? I think I know Yiska's stance on this, but Kenobi, where do you kind of sit on this?
So you're asking, like, should we just let the teams that are failing?
Not necessarily to say to let them fail, but to allow the teams that want to exceed, give them that opportunity. For example, we obviously know that some of the merch sale has been equalized across a lot of the teams. Is that something you'd want to see come back to? Give these teams that want to participate, that want to excel, let them play the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the merch should be like a thing where it's like, if you're gonna, like, there should be no slacking in terms, because if everything is like, oh, everyone's gonna get the same amount, no one's gonna try anything. Like, right? Like, no one's gonna really
no innovation.
The only team that's able to do that was Houston, who's like made like some new.
They got some sick merch.
Yeah, like their merch, like the Flower Powder merch. I don't know if that necessarily is shared between all the AL teams. I don't know enough about any of those things, but like stuff like that doesn't happen if if you can be like a competitive market and just be like, okay, yeah, I want to make something really cool, but I'm going to be doing it for the sake of the other 19 teams that are in this. I don't really think that's the greatest way to do it.
The funny thing is, yes, it isn't. The incentive structure is pretty screwed, but in the same sense, it doesn't have to be. It's a weird prisoner's dilemma situation where, like, if we're all in this and we would all go like full force to the moon, diamond hands.
Yeah, if we all died, if we're all like buying GME stocks, if like all these 20 teams are just everybody just hold your GMEs, right? Everybody just hold. Then it's
but
really
all I'm getting is lost porn right now, Kenobi. The Overwatch League is lost porn. I want to see some stocks. No, you know what I'm saying?
So, but the metaphor is, why don't like subtract or insert instead of GME stock, insert hype, content, and like drive for the league, and we all work on it, and we all go ham on our expenditure for these types, and we let loose a little bit on the restrictions that we have in terms of like what kind of content can fly, and we really adapt to the audience and to the moon, boys. Like
to the moon.
Yeah, so you're buying me dinner, right?
I would, if that makes you work harder. We're going to have dinner together. That's the point, right? Like,
yeah, we're having dinner together.
To eat. If you can feast.
If you can hold true to that benevolence, and you can guarantee me that 19 or 20 other people are going to be able to be that benevolent, then yeah, the system works.
Look,
the problem is nobody's like that.
The thing is, like, okay, what you do is like, okay, you just say, okay, let's go all out, and then there's going to be 2 slackers, and then you just get the soap with the sock behind the barn and let them know that this is not how it flies. You know, that's.
I wasn't sure where you're going with soaps and socks until you went with it.
Yeah. I was confused a bit.
But I think, you got indirectly sanctioned behavior that doesn't contribute to the continued survival of the league, and I know that there is something to be said about the responsibility, of course, of already having made sufficient or high financial commitments towards the success of this thing, but like you gotta juice it up a little bit more. And here's the kicker: this is a passion industry. Like, there are very few industries where you will get passionate, high skilled people in that you can underpay more than in esports, right? Like, gaming is like this in general. I honestly think esports is worse in terms of like what you can expect to be paid for the skill level that you have generally. Sure. Even though like
obviously
like
it's
IT
not
already and
one-to-one.
Dev is not amazing, but yeah,
sure,
everyone's all underpaid, dude. Like this industry works on the blood, sweat, and tears of a lot of people that aren't paid at all.
I agree 100%. I can already hear the hijacking of just like, yeah, you're right, Yiska. If they did spend all that time they would have spent playing video games, they would have been heart surgeons by now. It's just like, yeah, guys, that's not how that works.
Some might be skills. Some might be.
Sure. Some, not all. Let's not, throw 300 some odd people under the bus in that way.
No, but like we most definitely have a lot of people with the intellect to be very successful managers, to be engineers, to be leadership figures in other parts of business, or I mean other parts of life, generally speaking. That like the average level of talent in this sector is actually crazy in comparison to the normal market position. And what you have to pay these guys is laughable in comparison. Like, people don't seem to realize that how bad of a business currently esports actually is, that when you have such a powerful workforce and you're still barely holding on despite underpaying them so heavily, like these business models we have are atrocious. Like, if people weren't sacrificing and also to a degree making poor financial choices towards the future of their career, and sort of like now it's getting a little bit more palatable because it's sort of gamble you can take with your career, and then like it's not seen as like a hole in your resume anymore, right? But like that wasn't the case. A lot of the people that have stuck around for over a decade definitely had to work against adversity. So everything is just hard. Like you work a lot, you don't get paid a lot. Like the job security is low in pretty much every sector. The overall skill sets that you like, everyone in esports is seemingly autodidactic, has to teach themselves. Like everyone that works a job can practically do something else. Like it's crazy. Like how often you just hear, "Oh, what are you doing? Oh, you're doing team management for that team. Oh, you can also edit like a featured movie thing, like because you had to like develop that skill set in order to have any PR for your team." Or that type of stuff, or right? It is like the talent level in esports, and no less in Overwatch, and we're finally also cashing in on it by opening the doors towards these types of people. Like it's just that's what this industry is carried by, and everyone that tells me that we need new monetization models, we've talked about it once before. Like it is pretty nutty to me that I can't pay as much as I do for entertainment subscriptions and don't have one in esports anymore.
I think, again, probably not worth unpacking fully, but I think there's reasons for that. I think there are very real reasons why people aren't spending money. I also think that, again, we're very spoiled. We're very inundated. We're kind of inoculated into this idea that esports is free. And in that way, nobody's ever had to pay for anything. Not saying that you have to pay for things, but nobody's also creating things worth your time and buying. There's a reason why, granted, it's a bit of a cooked opinion or a cooked take, but there's a reason why people are buying GameStop stocks and we aren't spending, more than $4 on esports, anything. It's you're investing into a gamble and a perceived value or literally just nothing. So I think we have to, across esports as a whole, have to step up. And that's why I look at, Liquid. I'm going to step outside of Overwatch for a second. I look at Liquid Plus. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I don't know if anybody's going to be interested in it. I'll be surprised. But at least that's something that somebody's creating that, is challenging the status quo and saying, well, at least 100 Thieves made merch. That's cool, I guess. Right, guys? Like,
yep.
Anybody else doing anything cool? Nope. And God, it sure is LA and Overwatch League team, to tell you that. Like, if these teams want to succeed, I feel like that we need to start producing something worth buying. And right now, it just ain't it. It's just not there yet. And
I mean,
I don't know that.
To be fair, I think we have plenty of products that are worth paying money for. We're just so used to not spending money on it. And if you take that away from us now, and
sure, then
that wouldn't work, right?
100%. So I think you have to go not above that, but you have to make something alongside that.
Yeah.
That is equal in terms of value, or maybe even more so for a different audience that you can put a price point on and say, look, you can have this, the free, stream, but you can also pay a little bit extra for all these extra perks. Stuff like that.
Like I for instance paid for GSL. I didn't feel bad paying for that. Even though I was a poor student. Like if you're spending so much time watching Overwatch, then theoretically there should be a way to monetize that specifically, that actually actively has you make the decision to put money into it and not just like ad revenue stuff where we are ad blocking anyway, right? So yeah, it's a hard thing. Like as soon as someone can,
by no means is it easy.
But 100%. By the way, like for instance, when streaming came out, the streaming could have run very, very differently to what it is.
Sure, yeah.
But there were innovators, like for instance, someone like Rekful, who introduced the idea of having donations like stuck or paired together with like on-screen messages.
Text to speech, yeah, something like that.
Yes, others innovated text to speech and that kind of stuff. If that never normalizes very early into the streaming hype, nobody's getting as rich as they are now. Right? Like,
was it Destiny that had like the first like pseudo sub button that he kind of introduced, like the idea of like subbing to his like website, and then that would like integrate with like the Twitch API? Something I could be wrong on that. Twitch history is not my forte, but like yeah, there's a lot of innovation when it came to Twitch that they kind of like just
and
copy and paste.
For instance, Team Liquid joined Team Liquid Plus today.
Sure.
I think.
Did you really?
Cloud? Yeah, they did.
No. Did you?
I haven't looked at the
okay.
the thing yet. Cloud9 did.
I think they have like a subscription kind of service, like, a reward program type of deal.
Yeah, and this is more towards the fan experience of like one particular. I think
sure.
Like give me anything of value towards like even have me buy the replays from our viewer. Like
yeah, I'll buy a replay pack.
That type of stuff,
yeah.
Right?
If I can have a library and I pay a monthly $5 fee for a library of odds, you bet your I'm buying that.
And also give me like maybe you can come up with a tool that makes it easier for me to find these particular interactions that I'm looking for. So for instance, let's say I want to say every 3K striker did in season X, and now it starts rolling me through those clips.
I'd pay a decent sum of money for stuff like that. If you could give me like a fancy tool where I can like sift through and really speed up my process of trying to find things, I might pay upwards of $100 for something like that.
Yeah,
$100 like a year, which granted isn't that much money if you divide it by months, but like again, I'd probably shell up. Yeah. But there again, I guess you're marketing the whales in that way, where it's just like a specific community.
Dude, it
probably had some sort of
like we got.
Yeah, again, something's better than nothing. I agree.
We gotta have workable business models, and at best, it's not a whale market. At best, it's not necessarily a donation market. There are ways where, for instance, if someone figures out micropayments, like you go to X and you spend like 2 cents by spending X amount of time there, just like passively, that could be something that's infinitely better and infinitely more revenue giving than watching like advertisement or whatever. And also sort of like makes you dependent on the advertisers' values that they wanted to portray. It's one of the it's not an esports specific issue, even though yes, we have a cultural problem. Also possibly less in the Overwatch League. That was one of the premises of the Overwatch League plan. I frequently remember, especially like this reunited these business guys going like, we have the stats, the average sports team fan spends X amount of money. Here is the average esports fan, and it's a fraction. So we got to find some method to unlock the spending potential. Because let's be honest, gaming and people in gaming and esports fans are either like chat. Don't think too highly of yourselves. But you're on average smarter and probably more or higher earning eventually than the average person. Like that's just like something that is pretty well established through papers.
Feed their egos, bro. Feed them up.
You're smart, Chad.
If you like and subscribe, dude, you might just be a genius. I'm just saying. Leaving a comment, oh my God, Elon, watch out.
A lot of savants in our chat.
Oh. Capital S.
The problem is, like, you guys use all your ticky IQ points to not pay for stuff. Like, come on. Like, please. My children must eat.
Comment and subscribe, chat.
Are they aliens? They have like antennae now? Like, what was this? Where were you going?
That's the synapses firing, of course. That's the sound of it.
Okay, all right. Very good.
Right. That's a perfect moment to end it as soon as I start doing that type of stuff.
Probably.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess you wanna do some projections for those
projections? Oh, for Nexus? Yeah, I guess we could. I mean, I don't know how super interesting they are.
Don't give me like the super detailed like in this game blah blah blah. How's it going to continue? Who's going to slap?
Dallas.
Dallas loses.
Interesting.
Shanghai. I think Shanghai and Charge goes 5.
Yeah, I think it's close. I think Shanghai wins though.
Yeah, Shanghai. But
I think it's a Shanghai Seoul final, and
I think we coin toss and see how Karif is playing that day, and that will.
Yeah, Kenobi be the coin tosser.
Heads, Karif plays poorly. Tails, Karif plays. It's Tails, so.
What's Tails?
Charge wins.
Oh,
Charge
damn.
wins.
Oh.
Charge beats Shanghai. Charge Seoul.
Off.
3 sleep dots this match. At least.
Yeah, more than 2.
More than 2. He's improving.
Yeah, no.
Soul wins the entire thing regardless, I think.
Ooh.
I'm not ready to go that ham just yet, but they're getting there.
And I think they beat Charge.
They beat Shanghai, but that game was way closer than 3-1.
Dude, you I really held myself back, right? Like, chat, please acknowledge that I held myself back until this point. But if you're praising Soul this late into the episode, I just have to say, Jesus Christ, is Prophet an absolute nut.
He is. Let it go.
Yeah, you're like, oh, this series was closer than a 3-1. I bet if Prophet plays Volskaya, they don't get full held, and it's probably
no.
Maybe. That's true.
This man is. He just doesn't
he
stop.
Played really well.
Yeah,
his echo looks good too.
Held, brother. Like they're not there. There's no way that's a 3-1 if Sable if Prophet's on that Volskaya. No chance.
This man is
true. It's true.
He just doesn't stop. Like
he's the best player in the world.
He is. No, like the thing is, like despite whatever his team may have looked like, and I hope people generally like maybe at some point someone with a big platform will go like, okay, let's actually check how good Prophet was throughout season 1, where he was already underrated and only was seen as like a. Keep in mind, 0 MVP votes, agility's 2. For like in
you're
season
still
1.
Mad about that, like 4 years down the road.
I mean, it's a robbery for
possibly
a gold candidate. And then season 2, he also has to. Sorry.
I don't think it's a possibly. He's good. He is.
Yeah.
There's no.
By the way, like, do people understand what greatest player of all time means? Like, there cannot be a GOAT. There has not been enough time, bro. You're standing there with your 30 friends still watching Overwatch, and you want to wait for 15 more years in order to say that? Like, not like. Of course, there has to be a best player from start to finish right now. If we had a power level tool and it would analyze everything, then that would have a number, and we could say who the best player is. I agree that the gap between everyone is not really hard or like wide. I also agree that there's a team of immensely skilled players that kind of won back-to-back and dominated everything. There's also a dude that seemingly has to do it pretty much by himself with like 1 or 2 teammates occasionally helping out while just like soft carrying playoff matches. Like, and then the regular season of how this guy plays is generally underrated as well. Like he was definitely one of the best players in season 1. Season 2, he plays one of the best Briggs. Sometimes has to play Zarya. Somehow people now think his Zarya wasn't that good. Yes, because he couldn't really adapt to that. I'm not sure if he's like, if Prophet can commit to Zarya an entire season and can like focus it out like Sinatra and Summon Su did. I'm not sure he's a worse choice or clearly a worse choice then. Like season 3, yes, this is the first time he looked mortal, but only on one hero, which I readily accept. Everything else cracked. So
Kenobi. To kind of, temper or maybe set a projection for the future.
Okay.
2021 for the Overwatch League is going to be a big season. One of those reasons is they have a new sponsor, a new partner. For instance, let's say you might say that they might have some new statistics. They might have some new data coming in by way of their partnership with IBM. Now, let's just say, for instance, that IBM, Watson does the number crunching and, he's plugging away, supercomputer things, synapses are going, I don't know, whatever. How mad do you think Yiska is going to get if they come up with a statistical generator of numbers or values to put on players, and Prophet is not near the top.
Not near.
I'm not saying he's going to.
How
but
mad are you going to be? Is now the question.
How are the stats? Like if he was if the supercomputer deemed him not as good as we all think he is.
Yiska would blow a gasket.
Yeah.
Yiska would be mad. I think there's an anecdote that actually stats is really it's funny with stats when you mention it, because like there's an anecdote where that Veli actually said on broadcast once, where he says stats are like bikinis, they don't show everything. You know what I mean? And I think with Prophet, Yiska would basically just go like that. He's just like, yeah, stats are whatever. The dude's still probably the GOAT. Like, there's nothing. I don't think you could change Yiska's mind. Given like all the stats or everything.
I don't think stats necessarily takes into consideration like history. Obviously, gonna wrap things up here shortly, but like to kind of unpack that a little bit farther, like, yeah, we've only been in Overwatch League for 4 seasons, but the history of Overwatch extends at least 2 to 3 years before that. At least 2 years. Mm-hmm. If you want to really reach, you could say 3. But 2015, like that's a stretch. So like we're getting pretty deep into the history of this game. Nobody's close to Prophet's level.
No,
no one.
No.
And the people who are still competing in the league, and yeah, they're great, but very few can argue.
I wish he won it. I think we wouldn't have any questions. And honestly, I think they might have won it if they just get that map.
Sure. In a couple of years when Shy gets MVP over Prophet anyways.
Dude, I'm not trying to force this kid like in future projections. Like, I'm not trying to will him into the goal position. I look retroactively at whatever he's done, and then I get mad that people don't like acknowledge that. It's like if he play like I'm fine. Everyone's saying his echo was atrocious. True, it really was bad. At the I remember some Hollywood matches. Jesus Christ! Like
I don't think we have enough. I mean, okay, obviously we can have like a greatest of all time now, but like we're not going to get to someone. I think people expecting us to have like a greatest of all time, like Faker. We're not doing that. We don't have that yet. We don't have enough time to have a Faker level greatest of all time. We have a greatest of all time now, but in the future that could change with like someone else comes along or Prophet just continues being Prophet for another like.
It's also you Americans seem very spoiled with the idea that you definitely have like this one guy that you can say it about, like Wayne Gretzky. Like there's nothing really you can say.
The thing is about what we do. It's not like we have like a fetish about it or anything. It's like we literally do.
We like, just add it just happens.
The greatest of all time in hockey is Wayne Gretzky. Stats wise, just performance. Yeah. He is the greatest.
Basketball.
It's. I mean,
you have at least 2 camps, but
you're either Michael Jordan or you're like beat down and you're wrong and you say LeBron James. Like,
shout out to beat down.
I don't think he's in chat.
Maybe catches a lot, who knows?
And then baseball is like a bit harder because baseball is so like really old, and you have like Babe Ruth, and you have people like that who are like considered to be the greatest all the time, but there isn't realistically, or like even in boxing, like Muhammad Ali, I would say is like probably considered the greatest.
Yeah, sure. No, like in European football, for instance, you could definitely have countries war against each other over the question who's better, Ronaldo or Messi. Like you can actually incite a war over that.
But I don't even think like there's an argument to greatest of all time in soccer. I think it's just Pele. Like I don't think people really argue that anymore.
Yeah, no, like the problem is like the duration and the game is so different that like that's one of the arguments that in my mind it's like, yeah, the game hasn't been around long enough, dude. Like if we keep switching up this chameleons type of stuff 3 more years and we're getting like another game and stuff, like this game is ever changing and we're going to have the exact same problem where it's irrecognizable from what it once was. Yeah. How are you going to evaluate these game states against each other?
Doesn't matter for Prophet because there's no one close to Prophet yet.
Like, and he consistently continues to be good.
Continuing to be good. So regardless if the game changes or like whatever, someone has to catch up to Prophet, which someone hasn't realistically done yet. No. There's no one close. Prophet, season 1 champion. There you go. Season 2, bit of an issue, but still, had some really good stats in terms of just like, if
Performance-wise.
IBM Watson, performance-wise, he did fine. Season 3, semi-finalist, or not semi-finalist, finalist, and popped off on everything besides the Echo. Like, the dude has had consistently the best performances in Overwatch League and in Overwatch probably.
Yeah.
And he's not going anywhere. He's still one of the still the best player in the game.
The only person that's gonna kill him is him. Right? Like, he's going to retire and ride off into the sunset, and like he's going to be the harbinger of his own career.
Also,
there's nobody close to him right now.
Stop saying Striker is clearly the best tracer in the game. Just stop. Just don't. No.
See, I'm less inclined to fight that argument. I don't really care either way. Like, sure, if you want to have that take, that's fine. I think there's just a very clearly better player.
The man aims better and has better tracking than Prophet, which is why. Sorry.
Really, I think Striker's cracked out of his skull. Like, I see them more as on Tracer. I see them as like 1A, 1B, maybe. And probably like
but
1 or 2.
People are making it like he's like SSS, and everyone's like just at best in S tier.
No.
No.
The people who are doing it are wrong. Sorry, but like just not how that works.
Like, he just
like Striker's good, but
the reason why Prophet is able to dominate on so many different heroes is because he understands flow of the game on a different level, doesn't necessarily do it through mechanics, and that's exactly what he has on someone like Striker. While Striker is clearly the better mechanical player, especially on Tracer. So, like, the one skill set is transferable. And Striker also has, admittedly, also made it transferable to a certain degree on some other heroes, like briefly for Widow or whatnot, but not to the same degree. He doesn't understand Overwatch to the same intuitive level and doesn't see these openings in the Matrix to the point that Prophet does. Like, Prophet is Overwatch in that regard.
Yeah, he kind of lives in the game. And I'd agree with that. I will say that there were definitely some tendencies, especially on where he was placing his pulse bomb in Nexus, that I'm very interested to see how that projects to the future. If he's always been a very like systematic player, feels very rigid, and I don't think that it's necessarily as rigid as it comes across for him in particular. It just kind of like works that way, where he finds something that works and can consistently find it. Like you're saying, he just kind of like sees the game differently from his peers and can develop these, systems that he can thrive in. Again, to your credit, kind of penning the Winston Tracer dive system. Now, again, tough to say for sure, but from the few games that we've seen from Seoul, he's a bit of a Brig hunter. He likes to go after Brig quite a lot. Likes to go after the supports. Not something, again, not very general, but is that something that he's necessarily shown across his career where like he's kind of pointed in that way? He has these avenues that he kind of finds for himself and just runs down, and nobody kind of stops him because, again, the game changes. One week, we see this tendency. The next week, he has this tendency, and you never get to kind of settle with the game to be able to stop a player like that. Again, everybody has the chance to be that kind of player, to find those holes, to find those systems like Prophet does, but nobody does. It's just him. That's it.
Yeah. And
there are some good players. Prophet's, again, the greatest.
Honestly, like in the same vein, the only player that sort of feels like this, and arguably also has probably a slightly better mechanics, is Decay.
Sure. Where I think he has a bit of a career ahead of him, right? Yeah. He needs to put up some numbers
as well, I suppose. But Fled is a little bit differently. Like, he's not hard carrying most of the time, right? Not anymore.
Not to the same degree. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Profits to a degree, yeah. Like pound for pound, Shanghai should be doing way better. Just as a team. Just looking at the teams, like who's actually lifting more weight. I look at Prophet, I'm like, there are some problems on your rosters across the years that I'm like, yeah, you're willing this team across that line sometimes.
It's just like, when this guy has clearly very good teammates, not stacked on every role, but he has a couple of these like best player in the world at that role, he's winning championships for you.
Yep.
He did it in Apex Season 4, he did it in Season 1. Like, the stage finals as well. Like if you just give him a little bit to work with.
Like I remember that because we were watching that one Hanzo play where he like kills like 5 people.
Like
dude, like come on,
who does that?
That's like when we talk about like because I asked this question once, like what are the also we're tangential a lot, right?
Yeah, it is what it is. That's what podcasts are for.
KT's gonna be mad tomorrow having to timestamp all this, but like when I asked this question once, it's like what are the like plays that like we as a esports so far have, like because like in League you look and you have like a lot, like in actually in just other esports in general, like you have a lot of these like
memorable plays
like the Happy Deagle
3K
Ace? No, the one where he like, kills
so.
everything, like the and then like League you have like the prey arrow, you have the faker Z1v1, like you have shit like that. And then Prophet's like I think that Hanzo moment is like that's our probably like prey arrow,
or the Tracer moment on Volskaya.
Season 1.
Well, they were both on Volskaya, so like both of those plays are just from Prophet, and he's like one of the only people who has like multiple. Like I think everyone else has like one, maybe like the Miro juggle. That's like a thing.
Sure.
Fran Grav. It's like you get one, but if you're making multiple of those types of plays that are like iconic to the folklore of Overwatch League, then yeah, you deserve to be put as the greatest player of all time, which I think he is.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say like flashy plays make a great player, but it definitely puts you on the ballot. Like, I don't think there's a coincidence between like highlight level plays and being a great player. I wouldn't say it necessarily puts you at the top, but you're in that discussion automatically. If you're getting all these plays, there's probably a reason for it. It's probably because you're a good player.
Well, that's why I said it's multiple, because like if you have one, you did want something once really good. Right. But like if your Prophet who's got like shit ton, like even the Ash 4K that he had in like the recent like grand final, like that was nuts. Like that's one of those plays where it's like he's like literally trying to will his team to win this.
Yeah, he's a little highlight machine for sure. Like, and you can't really find it. Again, I go back to Apex Season 4, and I might be I might be technically wrong, but Genji's not a hero he's known for. Let's face it, guys. Guess who he beat 1v1? Hoxall. Arguably the greatest Genji to play the game. And it wasn't close. Again, Yiska, you can kind of credit this. How many times did you guys have to go through and actually look at those stats and be like, is this right? Like, is the bot tracking this right? Because this seems a little wrong. Like, this is
really like this. You don't see this stuff. It's like basically like you go into a World Cup final and some guy scores like 6 goals. That's basically equivalent of what happened there in that game.
Yeah, Kenobi, if I told you somebody in the World Cup scores 6 goals, what would your first opinion be? What's the first thought that comes to your mind? Like,
that's not
right.
Yeah.
But that's Prophet.
Yeah.
That's what's insane. And again, like, I don't blame people for not being able to go back and like, oh, I wasn't there, like I didn't know, like it is what it is, but like nobody really holds a candle. Like, sorry to poo on your favorite player. It's just not close. As it stands right now, he's the greatest.
The feeling is, I think some does feel close to a degree, to me at least. But the problem is that how do you weigh an individual player's performance on a team as stacked as a shock? That's the problem that you always have to
for sure.
Someone called
and yes, I also agree. And if they keep doing it, I agree with Super's argument to a degree as well, that Violet is a name that should be brought up, because he is just like multi-talented in that regard. Usually can't really show it off to that degree, but he's incredible. So definitely, like I think people rightfully call out that it is like hard to, but I think especially if you followed Overwatch a little bit longer than just the Overwatch League, you will probably find that Prophet just through his consistency is there.
Yep. I think that's the one distinction that you have to make is this the greatest Overwatch League player, or is this the greatest Overwatch League player or the greatest Overwatch player? I think one of those has a very clear distinction. The other one, I feel like maybe you could argue, but even then, I feel like you have some definite standouts. But I think that's where I think we're going to wrap up. Obviously, going a little long.
Yep.
Hopefully an enjoyable discussion.
And then I just had to talk about Prophet once more. Like it had been 5 episodes. Come on,
Break
what do you want from
glass.
me? Right.
You gotta meet the quota, I guess. You gotta make sure that they're in there.
Right.
So shout outs to our patron producers, Refine Bean, Freddy and Pin, Battle Crab Lotion, Rexane, Audio Compass, Cash67, Char, Picasso, Nathan Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Fable Steven, Roger B, Owen, Chris Hart 34444, or Bjorn. I listen to this podcast whilst on the toilet in the shower. Thank you, Yiska, Peace Camper, Anxiety Pokemon, Sir Girthala, Bronze Bot Boohow, Evan, and Alex S. Thank you for your continued support. If you don't, COVID has your wallet pinched a little bit. You don't have the funds to necessarily directly support the show. You can also go on iTunes and support with a 5-star review. Shout outs to Kenobi for coming on. Thank you, Yiska, for streaming the stuff. Hopefully KT is what does a sleep study actually do for you? Like I know it's like a study of your sleep, but like
no, you sit in the classroom and you just take notes and all the
on
notes
how to sleep better.
ZZZ.
All right, nice. Yeah.
It's
like
just
that.
ZZZs.
You go in. It's like basically it's like a hotel. Like right, you just go. Except the hotel is hooking up a bunch of electronics to your body. Wires and shit. So you like when I went, I had to like get the nose thing and get like a bunch of stuff on my chest. You just sleep, and then that's it.
Huh. Well, I see. This is where I'm just like, I hope everything goes well, but it's just like, is that come across as weird? I don't know. Like, how do you like wish somebody luck on their sleep test? Like,
luck sleeping.
All right, yeah, good luck sleeping.
Just get something against the sleep apnea if you have that, and then it's apparently life changing to have that. But yeah.
Sure.
Right. Then, thanks again to you, Kenobi, for coming on.
Big clutch.
I'm, as per Eric, you lost 20% on your AMC investment during this episode. You're welcome.
No.
And otherwise, we will see you the next time, hopefully, with John once again in the driving seat of this crazy vehicle.
Gotcha.
Thanks for watching. Right, post show. I'm not offline yet, so chat is still here for like 2 minutes, and you gotta go, right? Anyway,
I mean, I do have to go and like I just have to cook.
Yeah, we just needed to wrap up.
Right.
Yeah, we just wrap up.
Yeah.
I lost 20% of AMC. So, fuck. All right, so if you want to,
anybody looking for an AMC stock, going once. Nobody will sign it.
Yeah, I mean, tough luck. Right. I think we're going to just cut the stream short here. Thanks again for watching, guys, and
see you
hopefully next week, all fresh.